CTV reporter Vassy Kapelos calls out the Liberal Party for their insane budget and a lack of collaboration on said budget.
Why does it appear that there wasn't a huge amount of consultation or collaboration in advance of the tabling of the budget? Every leader of a party or House leader of a party whom I've interviewed over the last week indicated that they did not feel that there was any kind of meaningful consultation that led to your government actually incorporating some of the ideas they put forward. And I would say, to substantiate that, every minister over the past week whom I've interviewed about the budget and whether or not there was any flexibility kind of said something similar to you, like, this is our mandate, this is what we presented it. I'm paraphrasing, but like, take it or leave it. Aren't you in a position as a minority government to do more to try and secure support for that budget other than say, here it is?
Well, we believe we have a mandate to put forward this budget, but we also believe that this budget reflects the aspirations and hopes of a number of the members of the opposition. We spoke about, to take my own province in Quebec, we are building port facilities, we're investing in health infrastructure, which was a specific request coming from that province. You can go right across the country. I'm proud to be the transport minister. We're investing in port rail infrastructure right across the country. We think there's broad consensus on those things. This is a growth budget, a community-focused budget. We believe that people who may have voted Conservative or think of voting Conservative, these are concepts that they can support, that they can get behind. It's a budget that's firmly planted in the middle of Canadian politics, a middle that I must say, is expanded somewhat since Mr. Poilievre has taken his party very clearly to the right. But I am specifically aware, Vassy, of the discussions that have occurred. The Prime Minister has met all party leaders, including the Green Party leader, the NDP leader. He asked the Finance Minister to specifically consult with those leaders about specific budget asks that they might have. Ministers have met their critics. I have met with not only my counterpart House leaders, but I've met with MPs from all parties to get them. And I think it's unfair to say that some of their hopes and recommendations aren't reflected in the budget document. I know specifically that they are.
But what you seem to indicate is that the reflection of those interests are most pronounced in infrastructure dollars going to their communities. Like, that isn't all that, just to be fair, a moment, that isn't all that they're asking for. They have different postures, for example, on how much you are spending, what it is best being utilized for, or is it not, and how much you are intending to save. Like, there are different postures on all of that. Is just infrastructure money enough to satisfy the number of Canadians who didn't vote for you?
I spoke about being in the middle. On one hand, you had Mr. Poilievre wanting to deprive the federal government of tens of billions of dollars in revenue and reduce the deficit. You can't do that. He didn't even try and do that in his own platform 6 months ago. On the other hand, you had the Bloc Québécois looking for $36 billion in new spending. So it should be no surprise that we were unable to reconcile the specific and public requests of the Conservative Party and those of the Bloc Québécois. Again, this is a document and a series of measures that find themselves squarely in the middle of Canadian politics. We protect social spending, we protect good skilled trades, union jobs from coast to coast. We also invest in major infrastructure. We invest in growth and jobs and a focus on the economy. That's what this Prime Minister's promise is, and that's what we're determined to do.
I want to ask about that central tenet, because the way in which it was billed by your government, by the Prime Minister, by the Finance Minister during his speech, for example, in the House of Commons, was as generational. He used the term 25 times in that speech, at least 25 times. He also said it would be, and the Prime Minister did, a sea change. It would be transformational. You have utilized two things to foster that economic growth. One is spending on infrastructure. The other is allowing businesses to essentially write off investment should they pursue that. What is transformational, novel, generational about that? I've seen governments do that time and time again.
Well, we've done all of those things, but we've also modified with C5, the Building Canada Act, the method by which projects get approved in this country, and we're seeing, the Prime Minister spoke on Friday about $1 trillion of new investment being generated. That is thousands.
That is make-believe at this point.
Well, it is not.
It's not tangible.
It is not. I'm privy to a number of the big investment proposals coming forward. There are substantial investment proposals in every corner of this country that exist, that the government is working on currently, that will have shovels in the ground in the very near future. So the promise of this budget is that if we look after people, We make lives more affordable for them. Cut their taxes. Cut taxes for first-time home buyers. Put a major effort on building homes using Canadian materials, Canadian labor, and build these major projects that we can get our economy moving and get our trade diversified away from the pull of the United States into new markets and create future prosperity for young people today. Young people today want to know there's a future in this country, an economic future. This budget is about saying to them, yes, there is.
Let me take just two examples that you put forward, though, to counter on how, again, this is going to, as claimed by your government, transform fundamentally the Canadian economy. You mentioned housing. The money allotted to the new agency that you've created is just 60% of what you promised it would be in the platform. When you talk about major projects, there are a ton of energy companies who had thought in this budget there would be a concrete climate plan announced so that they would know what kind of impediments could exist on a more permanent basis that could perhaps impede their ability to develop. The emissions cap is mentioned in here, and there's some, like, you know, sort of broad-based term about how you're going to strengthen the industrial price on carbon, and at some point the emissions cap maybe will go, maybe will stay. Like, there's no clarity whatsoever. Again, how is this budget delivering specifically on what you build it would be?
Embedded in this budget is a climate competitiveness strategy.
It is not. It is one page of broad strokes.
One that reinforces the pricing regime so that polluters continue to pay. One that invests deeply in new technologies, in renewable energy and renewable technologies in this country. And Vashi, with respect to your comment on housing, the housing money is substantial. It's a doubling of our effort. It involves a Buy Canadian policy, Buy Canadian labor, Buy Canadian lumber, Buy Canadian steel, and is obviously the first. When you build a platform, it's a 4-year platform. So this is a pretty...
The budget looks out over a period of time. I'm talking about a 5-year horizon.
This is a pretty massive down payment on a very historic effort to build new homes in this country.
My point is not to say you're doing nothing. It's to say you're not doing what you promised you would. You said you'd create certainty, for example, in the economy that would allow companies to invest at a greater rate. Saying that maybe sometime the emissions cap maybe could be or maybe not be removed does not provide that kind of certainty. Saying you're going to invest at a certain level in housing and it will materialize in a certain increase in supply and then not producing on that in the budget is not the same thing as what you said you would do.
I think we're doing exactly what we said we would do. I think that Mr. Carney's promise in the election was build Canada strong, create new export markets, create the trade and transport infrastructure, an effort that I'm very proud to be part of, to be able to send goods to more and different markets, and to create at home a domestic housing market and a domestic economy that young people can find their way in.
And he's just repeating himself at this point, more or less question period talking points. And I am so glad he mentioned Canadian lumber, because that seems to be disappearing. Let's take a look at this as another BC lumber mill closes down due to the US tariffs. They want to build homes with Canadian materials, but the companies producing said materials are shutting down or moving. Anyway, I would like to know what you think down in the comment section below, and have a good one.